How do you know when it's time to retire? Is it when you reach a certain age, portfolio value, cash flow amount? Maybe it's a specific number saved for retirement. Let's say $1 million, maybe 5 million, or even 20 million. Well, after helping hundreds of people plan for retirement, we've learned that knowing when to retire has a lot less to do with the numbers than most people realize. And it actually has a lot more to do with that feeling of having enough. We often feel like we need to work for that one extra bonus paycheck, one more equity compensation, one more RSU vesting round, one more project at work that you've been working really hard on. And while all of these elements can be very important, it is usually less of a driving force for determining when you can comfortably retire. My name is Brandon Clark. I'm a certified financial planner and certified private wealth advisor. And this is a new channel that I'm starting with the objective of really creating these videos to help you maximize your retirement. If you find these videos helpful, please feel free to hit the subscribe button to see more videos like this in the future. So in today's video, I'll walk you through how you can truly determine when it's time to retire and ultimately have a very prosperous retirement once you begin that chapter. A lot of people feel like they never have enough. When they finally do get that year-end bonus, that salary increase, that new title at work, maybe it's a second home they've really been working hard towards, a boat, or whatever it is that they are striving for in that moment, they'll feel like once they obtain it, they'll feel like, okay, I've had enough. However, that's usually not the case. It comes down to more of a mindset that creates that readiness for retirement. There's a famous story around that feeling of having enough. So at a party given by a billionaire on Shelter Island, Kurt Vonnegut, who was an author, informs his pal Joseph Heller, the author of Catch-22, that their host on the island, who was a hedge fund manager, had made more money in a single day than Heller had earned in its entirety from the novel Catch-22. Vonnegut looks over at Heller and he jokingly says, "Joe, how does it make you feel that our host only in one day has made more money than Catch-22 has made in its entire history?" And Joe looks over and calmly responds, "Well, I have something that he will never have. Enough." And in that moment, Vonnegut was left speechless because Heller was right and he knew it. And I think this simple yet profounding story really says it all, that no money in the world will make you feel like you have enough or generate that feeling of fulfillment. However, some of you may be thinking, yes, I get that, but you can't comfortably retire alone just on a feeling of enough. Yes, that's true. But instead of focusing solely on money and how large your portfolio can get to really determine when to retire, think about the ideal retirement that you would like to have. Because in reality, there's always going to be somebody that has more money than you. Whether it's a neighbor, a person on TV, or Elon Musk, you will always be chasing that extra dollar to keep up with others, also known as the rat race. Even if you finally obtain that certain number that you've been striving for, let's say it's $2, $5, $10, maybe even $20 million, you'll likely just continue to increase those numbers once you eventually get to that number that you've been striving for. And then in reality, you'll never really feel like you've had enough. However, if your goal is to fund a certain lifestyle, it makes it a lot easier to view your portfolio as a force for obtaining those goals, which makes it a lot easier to quantify and then ultimately feel good once you get to that number. On the flip side of all of this is the opposite effect. Some people chase retirement only to find that they feel bored and they lose their sense of purpose once they've actually retired. We see this all the time with our executive clients who have built really successful careers. They go from working 50+ hour weeks to just abruptly retiring and not knowing what to do with their time. Oftentimes, we see people retire just because they can start collecting Social Security or pension, or even worse, their parents retired at that age, so they think, hey, that'll probably make sense for me. In other words, it becomes kind of like a checklist item. And then once they finally retire, they feel lost. Instead, we prefer what's called a phased retirement, especially for this type of person, that busy executive. And what that means is that they're not just abruptly retiring. They typically do some form of consulting work for a few years after working full time, or they can even negotiate with their existing company to have somewhat of a similar role as when they were working full time, but maybe with less projects and flexible hours. So the first thing you can do to help avoid both of these scenarios, so that rat race feeling and never having enough, and also losing your sense of purpose in retirement, is to take a step back and figure out what you are looking to accomplish in retirement. So forget your 401k balance, your savings account, your pension income, Social Security, even real estate assets for a moment, but instead think about what your life goals are. Take time to yourself, or if you're married, with your spouse, to figure out what makes you happy. Is it freedom of your time? Maybe it's spending more quality moments with your family, traveling around the world, having the best form of healthcare, which in the US is very expensive. Or maybe it's making sure that your children and grandchildren are taken care of once you pass away and you become an angel. We often tell clients when they're contemplating what their dream retirement should look like is to create what we call a family mission statement. By doing this, you hone in on your values, your goals, your priorities, and maybe even your strengths and weaknesses. Once you have that dialed in, it makes not only retirement, but your life much more meaningful. You essentially have a purpose with every move that you make, with not only your finances, but also with your daily actions, with yourself and with your family. Now, once you figure out what those goals are, you can start putting numbers on those goals and quantifying how much you need out of your portfolio to help you achieve your life objectives. Besides life goals, one of the most dreaded, but oftentimes the most important elements for determining when to retire is a detailed and accurate budget for expenses. I know, pretty boring. But things like food, housing, clothing, travel, insurance, these are all essential necessities, whereas goals can be viewed somewhat as added privileges. Clients sometimes resist discussing their expenses, but in reality, this information is really important for creating a successful retirement plan. For example, someone living on a $75,000 annual budget and they're generating, let's say, $100,000 in income from pensions, Social Security, rental properties, would obviously have a positive cash flow in that scenario. But in contrast, let's say an individual is making $1 million per year, but spending close to or above that amount on their lifestyle, well, they of course would have a negative cash flow, and in turn, be in a much more precarious financial position. So clearly, income becomes a lot less relevant in that type of scenario. So the key is to focus on creating a detailed, realistic budget that accounts for both essential expenses and desired lifestyle goals in retirement. So let's say you have a pension from work that provides about $60,000 a year, and you know that your goals and expenses in retirement for things like travel, food, charitable donations, maybe it's sending kids or grandkids to private school, cost you another $60,000. These numbers, of course, can be higher or lower depending on where you live, but just to give you an example. So that means that you need $120,000 of total income per year, $60,000 from the income that you're generating from pension, Social Security, and $60,000 from your portfolio to have your ideal retirement. Pretty simple math. And of course, for the sake of this discussion, we're not going to factor in taxes. In order to figure out a sustainable withdrawal rate, we like to use a well-known strategy called the rule of 4%. The rule of 4% essentially means that you can take out 4% from your portfolio each year, adjusted for inflation. You should be able to comfortably sustain your portfolio with the right allocation of stocks and bonds, potentially with even some growth after that roughly 30-year time period. That means that if you take $60,000 and divide it by 4%, you would need $1.5 million as a portfolio value at retirement to sustain that type of lifestyle and goals. Easy math. However, I think this fairly conservative withdrawal method from your portfolio is very effective. But of course, really figuring out your specific financial situation and goals is going to be the most important for calculating the optimal withdrawal strategy for you. Instead of always striving for a new number for your portfolio, work backwards to figure out what you're looking to achieve out of your portfolio. Start putting numbers on annual goals for items like travel, charitable giving, certain hobbies like golf, tennis, maybe it's pickleball now, and then seeing how much you need to sustainably withdraw from your portfolio to help fund those goals. Elements like asset allocation, how much to have in stocks or bonds, maybe it's real estate, cash, digital assets, your risk tolerance, Even though these are important, that should come later on in the process after you've identified your goals and then in turn, how much to take out of your portfolio to comfortably achieve those goals. One other example, let's say that you have $5 million saved for retirement and you only need to take out 2% from your portfolio. So in that situation, $100,000. You have a pension and Social Security that's able to fund the difference for your expenses. In addition, one of your goals is to leave behind assets for your children and even your grandchildren. So 2% is a fairly, I'd say very conservative withdrawal rate. And going back to that rule of 4%, if you take out 4% per year adjusted for inflation, you should be able to weather through most types of bear markets with your portfolio. That means that with a 2% withdrawal rate, you have the ability to take on more risk, meaning more growth for your portfolio throughout your retirement to really try to maximize the growth potential for your retirement assets. From there, you can hone in on a certain investment plan to help achieve and fund those goals for retirement. However, let's say you don't really care to leave behind assets to children, and that's not really an important goal of yours. And believe it or not, we've seen that many times. We've even heard clients say things like, well, we want to fly first class, not our kids. And we're really good with them not receiving really much at all from us once we pass away. In that case, it may make more sense to start withdrawing more out of your portfolio to spend on your goals. Let's say your travel budget was $20,000, which in turn means you're still able to stay within that 2% withdrawal rate in the previous example. Maybe you should double or even triple your travel goal. Stay at 5-star hotels. Fly business or first class, have those nicer meals, because if your objective is to leave as little behind to your children as possible, then having a large nest egg once you pass away is actually going against your objective. Of course, areas like long-term care and other retirement risks do need to be factored in so you don't have that potential for underfunding. So, with all that being said, the objective for identifying when to retire comes down more to figuring out how to live intentionally in retirement. When we go through financial plans with clients, we're trying to determine how much you need from your portfolio to live the retirement you want to live. In other words, we're not chasing a specific number for your portfolio. We're not chasing $2, $5, $10 million. We're chasing what the portfolio can do for your life. More often than not, we find that people can actually comfortably retire a lot earlier than they realize because their portfolio can already help them live the retirement that they want to live. After you figure out what amount you need to create that dream lifestyle in retirement, it becomes much more enjoyable when you add money into your retirement account. So let's say it's a 401k, a Roth account, your brokerage account, and you start to see those values go up. You can essentially visualize your finances getting you closer to your life goals. So ask yourself, what type of retirement do you want to live? And what goals will make you feel like you have enough? Creating that family mission statement will really help mold the life that you want to live for not only yourself, but also for your family. And also, I think this point's really important. Don't listen to coworkers or that cousin at Thanksgiving to tell you when you should retire. That should come down to the goals that you want to achieve out of your life. Your portfolio is just a tool to help you live that ideal life. Thank you for watching, and hopefully you found this information was valuable to you. If you enjoyed this video, please feel free to share this and feel free to hit that subscribe button for more content like this in the future. If you're looking for advice on when it might make sense for you to retire, be sure to check out my wealth management firm's website at clarkgroupam.com, and you can learn more about our profit process. My goal is to help you maximize your retirement, and hopefully I was able to do that today in this video.